Okay, what's going on? First one of the year, 2026, new year, new us. Now, I'm gonna be a bit honest. This was originally supposed to come out New Year's Eve or New Year's Eve 2025. So this was supposed to be the last video of last year. However, I simply just became busy, to be honest. I got caught up in some other stuff and I just couldn't get it done in time. So I thought, well, this might as well be the first one for January, if that even comes out in time. To be fair, because at the time of recording this, and you'll notice that some of the clips are different. So some of them have been recorded quite a bit earlier, and some of them I'm literally recording a few days before we enter the next month. Hopefully this one comes out this month, but if it doesn't, then it means it's gonna end up coming out Feb. But I'm gonna really try and push to make sure this comes out the end of this month. Last year, I'll be honest, towards especially the latter end of the year, I don't want to talk too much because this video is already a long video and I'll probably say that again some point later on, but I want to say thank you, because me personally, my own objective was just to release one a month, and though I didn't stay incredibly consistent to it, one thing that I did become better with is how the videos were coming out, the quality of these. If you were to see me when I first started the very first video, which is still there, still on this channel to be honest, you would notice how terribly it came out, to the point where I've even considered redoing it. And I might redo it again in the future, who knows. But the thing is just that the vision that I had in my mind for this compared to how the first video came out was so different. It was so drastic. And I just came to realize that, like, it's one of those things where over time, I'll hopefully just get better at it, and the videos will start to come out more and more in the way that they have been envisioned in my head. And towards the latter end, it seems to have been doing that. And the great thing about that is that it was kind of reflecting in the views, and even like the sub count went up a little bit, you know what I mean? Well, to be honest, it might have gone up literally one, but the point is that I was improving and I was getting better, and that's honestly all I was asking for. That was all I was hoping for. This year, hopefully the same again, okay? Hopefully we continue going once a month. I am currently, uni has just started for me again, so if January, February and March videos, you know, if there's any months where they're least likely to actually come out when I need them to, it's these first 3 months. However, if I'm able to balance them and still give them 100% effort, then all the more to it. Then we're off to a great start to the year. So yeah, and the funny thing is, this first one is going to be a long one. I've said that already again, and to be honest, I'm going to say it later on. But to be honest, the fact that this one is being the first one for this year, I'm actually kind of fine with, because actually again, it's a long video, it's a banger one, but I hope that you enjoy it. There was just so many things I wanted to talk about. Originally, I had intended for this to be split up into like 2 different vids, but I realized that, like, F it, I might as well just make a longer one and just see how it goes. Obviously, you know, the vid tends to be nothing more than about okay, but either way, all that out of the way, we need to be quick, and we low-key need to hurry up, because it's the first day of school. Don't tell me you forgot. Bro, we got invited just to enroll at this school. It said that those who graduate from this school are pretty much set for life. Like, you got to be one of the best in order to get enrolled here. Well, not even one of, the best of the best. This is insane that we're even here right now. Don't tell me you forgot what we're talking about. The school's called Hope's Peak Academy. Bro, did you not read the thread I sent you last night? Okay, look, anyway, I've been trying to find my planner. I forgot what lessons we actually have for the first day, but from what I could remember, we have an assembly at the beginning, then I had maths English, science, as well as history, with another assembly at the end of the day. Then it is the first day, so today's going to be a bit of a more relaxed one, I guess, with the first assembly I think being like an opening ceremony or something. Apparently the assembly is supposed to be with the headmaster of the school, so I guess we'll be meeting him. I can't remember his name. I think it was something like Monokuma? I don't know. Bit of a weird name. It sort of fills you with despair a bit. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. We should probably get going. But hey, can I ask you? Am I the only one that's feeling kind of dizzy?
Danganronpa.
Look, if it weren't already obvious, especially from the flipping fall I just took, then that intro should have been enough, because we are going to be talking about the one, the only Danganronpa. More specifically, Danganronpa 1. But then again, I mean, to be honest, you should have known from the moment you clicked on this video. I mean, there's a literal thumbnail and the title. Either way, Danganronpa. And, you know, to be honest, the only reason why I came about Danganronpa is because of Yagi. See, Yagi had been nagging on to me and Tai to finally play Danganronpa 1. And it's not like we didn't want to play the game, but we were just kind of putting it off. And, you know, the same way that Yagi and Tai nag on to me about finishing Persona 5, because I haven't finished Persona 5 yet. And to be fair, that one's kind of slightly more justified because I've been playing Persona 5 for a while, but that's, and I'm not even talking about Royal, but that's a combo for another time. Either way, it seems like me and Ty decided to take his advice this time on playing Danganronpa 1. And, you know, because he didn't steer us, well, he didn't steer me wrong last time with Persona 5, I thought, why not listen to him again? And I'll be honest with you, he was on the money again with this one. Okay, he really did steer us wrong. Danganronpa 1 was an incredible experience. Really and truly, like, we enjoyed playing it so much. It truly was, it was peak, no pun intended. And like, it just like, it was fun to play. I enjoyed playing it every step of the way. All the twists, the turns, the curveballs, you know, it was truly incredible. Now, here's one thing I'm gonna preface now. If you plan on playing the game, then you should really think twice about watching this video, because I'm literally going to be talking about the game. Okay? I'm only going to be talking about up until the end of the first case in this game, and for anyone who does know anything about the game, then you know about how far I'm going to be talking about. But regardless, yeah, if you're planning on playing Danganronpa 1, then you could still play it after watching this video. It's just going to ruin the starting portion of that game for you. And honestly, I'd rather not ruin that for you, only because it's how great the start is that what kept me addicted to playing the game. So, hey, now is a time better than ever to either pause or stop watching this video. Or heck, you don't even have to start watching the video, just play it in the background, okay? Like, you know, let me still get the view and all. But either way, look, this is your choice now. You still here? Right, cool. Let's get going then. Now, here's the thing. Everything I said in the intro is completely true, okay? Hope's Peak Academy, the whole idea about the only way you can get in here is by literally being invited to the school, that part was true. As well as those who graduate from the place are destined for life, being the best in whoever they are. That is also true. Hope's Peak Academy only accepts the best, and once you graduate, you are the best, okay? Like, it's the whole point. Hope's Peak Academy, the best of the best, the very top, the creme de la creme. You get what I'm saying? The whole point is you gotta be the best on how you actually get invited to this school. So when the game starts and we are outside the gates of Hope's Peak Academy, that's when eventually we end up seeing our main character. And see, our main character is called none other than Makoto Miegi, as he introduces himself.
Before we go any farther, I guess I should introduce myself. My name's Makoto Naegi.
And like I say again, the students here being the very best, they get to be known as the Ultimates. And some of the early names we hear about in an online thread are the ultimate pop sensation, the ultimate baseball star, the ultimate fashionista, and the ultimate biker gang leader. And to be honest, there are a few more that the game introduces us to, but I'll keep them for when we actually get to meet them. After all, Makoto, our main character, is also enrolling at this school. Now, in saying all that, and remembering the fact that Makoto is entering this school, it might leave one question in your mind. What's our ultimate? Why is Makoto entering this school? What is it that we are the ultimate with? I mean, if we're going to school with all these ultimate students, what is Makoto's ultimate? And that's when we learn Makoto is none other than the ultimate lucky student. Now, don't get me wrong, the name sounds hard, like ultimate lucky student, kinda gas. But the question is, it's kind of a cheapskate. Because when you really think about it, who is to say that our main character is the best sort of dictator for the premise of luck? Like, how is the luck exactly being measured, and who is to say we are the best and the most qualified for the position of luck? And to be honest, it doesn't even specify what type of luck it is. I mean, really and truly, we could be the ultimate lucky or the bad lucky student, or it could be the ultimate good lucky student. Like, it doesn't exactly specify in which way luck sort of works in. But regardless, we are here. But then again, when we actually look at the acceptance letter, that's when we actually start to understand how Makoto got the name Ultimate Lucky Student. And we learn that exactly the way Makoto got accepted into the school is because hundreds of other high school kids like Makoto enter the lottery in order to enroll at Hope's Peak Academy. And of those hundreds of thousands of other high school kids who decided to enroll like Makoto, or who entered the lottery, Makoto ended up winning the lottery. He won the raffle, and that ended up allowing Makoto to enroll as Hope's Peak Academy, making him the ultimate lucky student. So I guess he was invited by quite literally pure luck. Lucky for him, that now makes Makoto the ultimate lucky student. That is pun fully intended. Now, we enter the school because, hey, we have to go in at some point, and whoa, do you feel that? And then we just pass out. And eventually we end up waking up in a classroom with no recollection of how the heck we even got there. So after waking up, we notice a few things strange about the classroom that we're in. There's a couple surveillance cameras in the room, and then there's the windows. The windows are bolted shut. There is literal metal steel plates over the windows with the windows bolted shut. Things are starting to get a bit weird around here. And the thing is, realizing that there's not much we can do within this classroom, we decide to leave. And after getting lost throughout the halls of this place, we decide, heck it, let's just go and try and find someone. And that's when we eventually get to the main hall, in which that's when we end up seeing the other ultimate students.
Whoa, hey! Another new kid?
Huh? Then you guys are all...
Yeah, we're all new here. Today's supposed to be our first day of class.
So, counting him, that makes 15. Seems like a good cutoff point, but I wonder if this is everyone.
And after some simple chatter, we basically end up realizing that everyone had the exact same experience as us. It just seems as though we were the last ones to wake up. And it's after that we kind of just assume that us being the last ones to get there, and in total that making 15 of us, we just assume that essentially 15 is it for the rest of us. And to be fair, even after some time goes by, no one really does end up appearing after us. So yeah, we can just assume for the time being that there's no more than 15 students. Those 15 students being the 15 students in front of us, including Makoto. And everyone decides, you know, now is probably a better time than ever that we finally introduce ourselves. And this is when we get to meet him. Makoto finally gets to meet the other lucky students. And you gotta remember, Makoto isn't quite the same as some of these guys because, well, he isn't the same as any of these guys because these guys truly are the best at what they do. They truly deserve the name of Ultimate. Makoto only got in here by simply having good luck. He won a lottery and now he became the ultimate lucky student, being an extremely ordinary person being allowed to enroll in this school full of extraordinary, well, ultimate people. Everyone else in here is special. They have something special about them, something that makes them unique, something that makes them ultimate. Either way, we decide to finally go speak to everyone and we end up meeting everyone. So let's now introduce you to the ultimate students, in which first we end up meeting...
I'm Kiyotaka Ishimaru. I believe in bold simplicity. Let's work together on our educational crusade.
Then after that we have...
Not that you'll remember my name anyway, but I'm Toko Fukawa.
Followed by...
Hi, I'm Sayaka Mizono. I look forward to getting to know you.
Then we have...
Yo, the name's Leon Kuwata. What's up?
And to wrap up the final first five students is...
I am Hifumi Yamada. But if you want to call me by my nickname,
The Alpha and the Omega.
I don't mind.
Okay, so cool. And now, after speaking to those five, we end up speaking to another five more. So, the first of this bunch is...
Heya! I'm Aoi Asahina, but my friends just call me Hina. Sup?
Then we have...
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Chihiro Fujisaki.
Followed by...
My name is Kyoko Kiryu.
After that...
Hi, I'm Junko Enoshima. Charmed, I'm sure.
And the final one of this second batch of five is...
Name's Mondo Owada. Nice to fucking meet you.
And then we have only 4 more students to talk to, in which the final 4 of these students, we start off with...
I am Sakura Okami.
Then we have,
Name's Byakuya Togami.
followed by,
I'm Yasuhiro Hagakure. Hero for short. Take it easy, yeah? I know I will.
and last but not least,
I do not think we have been introduced. I am Celestia Ludenberg.
and there we go. That's 14 students that we've spoken to, 15 including our main character Makoto himself. So that's all the ultimate students for you. Now, after meeting with everyone and having some chatter about what the heck has actually been going on, we hear an announcement.
Testing. Mic check 1, 2. This is a test of the school broadcast system. Am I on? Can everyone hear me? Okay, well then. To all incoming students, I would like to begin the entrance ceremony right now. Please make your way to the gymnasium at your earliest convenience. That's all. I'll be waiting.
So we all decide to listen to what the announcement tells us to do, and we all decide to go to the gym. And when we finally do reach the gym, it actually looks like an entrance ceremony has actually taken down. And that's when everyone's nerves start to calm down a bit. I mean, yeah, everyone was a bit scared at first, but it seems as though this was all some sort of weird initiation or something, or orientation, in order for us to get this entrance ceremony. But once again, apart from the 15 students, we haven't seen anyone. Like literally no other adult or student or anything like that. We haven't seen anyone else. And see, that's when we finally meet him. The headmaster.
Hey there, howdy, hello. Is everyone here? Good. Then let's get things rolling.
Huh? Teddy bear?
None other than Monokuma.
I'm not a teddy bear. I am Monokuma! And I am this school's headmaster. Nice to meet you all.
And Monokuma decides to F it, just drop the truth on us. He basically ends up telling us that we have to spend the rest of our lives here. And that he explains that there is technically only one way to get out, the graduation clause. In order to exceed the graduation clause, you must disrupt the harmony. So when asked, how exactly are we supposed to disrupt the harmony? He explains plain and simple. The only way to disrupt the harmony is by murdering someone. To take another person's life. He doesn't care how we do it, as long as we do it, that's all that matters to him. See, Monokuma from the rip mentions that he's supposed to represent despair. So when Monokuma says for verbatim, taking that hope and seeing it get murdered creates a darkened shadow of despair, he really means that BS. He genuinely means it. Then he eventually ends up handing out everyone e-handbooks. And e-handbooks essentially have school regulations and stuff like that and so. And he sort of just like disappears. And, you know, everyone is just sort of left in the gym questioning, did that very real experience truly just happen? And like, the funniest thing is, everyone is just left in the gym looking at one another. Because now everyone is scared because everyone is questioning in their minds, the only way to murder, or the only way to leave, is to murder someone. So as much as everyone wants to believe no one else in the gym is going to do it, everyone is also left questioning, does someone want to leave bad enough that they would truly kill another one of us in order to leave? And this is what I gotta say, this intro of the game already is cinema. Genuinely, when I played it for the first time, it had me so hooked. Because what do you mean the only way to escape is to murder another student? Mind you, like, this is said within the first few interactions of meeting this guy. This guy just comes in and goes, F it. If you want to leave, you either stay here for the rest of your life or you leave. And to do that, you gotta kill someone. What the actual F? And like, especially from someone who had heard of Danganronpa but never knew anything lore-wise or any sort of spoilers, this really set the tone for the game for me. Like, I had seen Monokuma before, and I knew that Monokuma was from Danganronpa, but I didn't even know Monokuma's name was Monokuma. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had seen things about Danganronpa, but I never really knew anything about it. I didn't know the lore or anything like that. And honestly, it's incredible. Because like I say again, this really and truly set the tone of the game for me. I genuinely at this point had no idea what to expect, what would be coming up next. But let me tell you, it only gets better from here. See, a few days go by, and everyone is still kind of mixed feelings on what exactly is going on. On one half, some students are still under this idea that this is some kind of sick joke and that hope that eventually this joke will be over. And on the other hand, some are starting to accept that they must really have to spend the rest of their lives here. And see, Monokuma starts to become upset because no one wants to commit a murder, rightfully so. So Monokuma decides to give everyone just a bit of a push in the right direction, because how can you murder someone if you don't have a motive? So that's exactly what he decides to do. He decides to give everyone a motive. See, eventually Monokuma takes everyone to the computer room, because after some exploring, we've discovered a few places. And in this computer room, we end up learning that essentially Monokuma has prepared a video for each one of the students. Now, being Makoto, we get to look at his. And Makoto's one starts off pretty nice. It's a video containing his family, his mum, his dad, and his sister. And they all seem to be cheering him on from their home. But then the video switches. And we see the family house trashed with his family nowhere in sight. With the end of the video saying, find the answer after graduation. So this is what he meant by motive. Because the only way to graduate is to murder someone. And see, after everyone has watched that video, you notice everyone's reactions and everyone is freaking out. Because everyone wants to believe that the very real video that they just saw is fake. This Monokuma guy is good. And see, another day or two, a few days go by, and it seems as though Monokuma's motive, it worked. See, one thing I haven't told you yet is that essentially over the past few days, everyone has been meeting up in the dining hall first thing in the morning in order to just have like a meeting with one another. And we noticed that Sayaka, the ultimate pop sensation, is taking her awfully sweet time to get here, which is kind of wild because Sayaka tends to be one of the first ones to get there. So when we go in our room, trying to look for her, we notice something. Some sort of fight is taking down. Like, this room has been roughed the heck up. Don't know what sort of scrap went down, but damn, something happened here. But still, no sight of Sayaka. And that's when we finally go to the bathroom. That's when we see her. Or I should say, we see her lifeless body, because Sayaka has been killed. It finally happened. Monokuma got what he wanted. Someone finally committed a murder. And the worst part about all of it is that it happened in our bathroom. See, Makoto, being unable to handle the sight that he's just seen, ends up passing out. And some time goes on and we end up waking up in the gym hall with everyone else. And that's when Monokuma decides to tell us that one of us have indeed actually murdered Sayaka Maizono. The ultimate pop sensation is indeed dead, and one of us did it. However, that's when Monokuma also mentions the second part of the graduation clause. See, Rule 6 of the school regulations states that anyone who kills a fellow student will become blackened. And in doing so, they get to escape unless they are discovered. Now, how exactly can we discover them? Well, Monokuma says through a class trial. See, after a certain amount of time after a murder has taken place, a class trial will eventually begin, in which it's through that class trial that bringing up any evidence that was found between the time of the murder taking place and it being announced, as well as to the class trial time, you must find as much evidence as you can.
During the trial, you'll have to present your arguments about who you think the blackened is. And once everything comes to an end, the outcome will be decided by popular vote. If the answer you've arrived at is correct, only the one that disturbed your peace will be punished. The rest may continue their communal life. However, if you choose poorly, then the one who got away with murder will survive, and the rest of you will receive your punishment.
And when you get to the class trial, you must present your evidence to try and prove whoever did it. And this is where things start to get scary, because Monokuma mentions that if you get it right, only the person who murdered another student is punished. However, get it wrong, and not only does the person who got it right, not only does the person who committed the murder get to escape, but everyone else gets punished. Oh, and that so-called punishment that he's talking about is execution.
What?
Execution is execution. Execution! Electric chair! Bzz, bzz, poison gas! Torn apart like a paper plane in a hurricane!
And see, Junko Enoshima, the ultimate fashionista, being rightfully so, angry about everything she's just heard, decides to stomp on Monokuma. There's just one problem with that. School regulation rule 5. Any violence towards the headmaster is strictly prohibited.
This wasn't supposed to... Why me?
That's when we see Junko get shot multiple times with literal spears, piercing her body multiple times. And acting as if nothing had just happened, Monokuma ends up handing us the Monokuma file. Now, the Monokuma file talks about the circumstance as well as the cause of death. And he just leaves, leaving us to go find clues and go figure out the death, who caused the death of Sayaka. But here's the thing, realizing the gravity of the situation, we have no time to get upset at the deaths of Sayaka and the literal death that we just saw in front of us of Junko. Because if we don't solve this case, we're literally going to share the same death as these two. So, and the worst part is, the blackened student will get to walk away scot-free. So, we have to lock in. But just before everyone decides to start leaving, that's when Celeste, also known as Celestia, decides to mention something that she just saw in the Monokuma file. Sayaka's murder happened in our bedroom. More specifically, our bathroom. It happened in our dorm room, okay? It happened in Makoto's room. And no, this isn't me saying that Makoto did it. That's because something happened that I am yet to have actually even told you. See, coincidentally, Sayaka and Makoto decided to switch rooms the night before the murder took place. And the thing is about that is that Sayaka and Makoto even switched door plaques, seeing how their rooms are quite literally next to each other. Meaning that Sayaka's door plaque was now on Makoto's door, and Makoto's door plaque was now on Sayaka's room. Meaning that if someone were to walk into into Makoto's room, or if they were to walk into the room with Sayaka's door plaque, they'd actually be walking into Makoto's room. But we don't end up mentioning this yet, and to be honest, now everyone is instantly suspicious of us because it happened in our room. So now, not only do we need to go solve this case for the sake of bringing justice to Sayaka, but we need to solve this case in order to clear our own name. Because as of right now, we're prime suspect number 1. Now, after that, everyone decides to split up, go looking for clues. And we decide what better place to go than the place that the murder took place in, our own room. So we go there and we instantly notice some clues. Firstly, a brawl most definitely went down. Okay, this was a fight. Secondly, not only is there scratches on the wall, but there's scratches on the sword sheath. Thirdly, there's also the sword having been unsheathed. The sword was used at some point. Fourth, the lint roller was used. Kind of a strange one, but yeah, someone decided to use the lint roller within our own room. And possibly the most strange one, the room key is on the floor. See, Monokuma mentioned that each one of the doors, everyone's room door or dorm room, is unlock pickable. You can't lock pick it open. So there's no way that the murderer was able to get into Makoto's room by lockpicking it open. Because as Monokuma said with 1000% certainty, you can't lockpick those doors open. And the sad thing is, the walls of the room are all soundproof, meaning that even when the murder took place, no one would have been able to hear anything because the walls are soundproof. So no matter how loud you screamed or anything like that, there's just no way you could have been able to know that the murder took place. Also, the murder took place at 1:30 a.m. That means that the murderer probably had more than enough time to probably try and get away with some stuff, getting rid of some of the evidence. And see, this time Makoto decides to step back into the bathroom and see Sayaka's lifeless body again. However, this time we stay strong, and that's because we have two objectives in mind. Not only do we have to find the murderer, we have to bring justice to her, for the sake of Sayaka. Now, we look at her lifeless body and we notice a couple things. Firstly, her right wrist was swollen, and it had some gold residue on it. Then we also noticed that somehow only her left index finger has blood on it. The rest of her fingers, the rest of her palms are all spotless. Also, just behind Sayaka's body, we notice a dying message. It must have been the last thing she was able to do just before she died. With her own blood, she wrote on the wall 11037. And we can assume that because her only left index finger is the one that has blood on it, this must have been the finger she used in order to write the dying message. Except we don't really know what it means yet. It doesn't make any sense. but we know that she used her body to block the door or to block the message so that the killer wouldn't notice it. And that's when we notice one last key piece of information. See, the murderer really and truly did try and get rid of some evidence, and how we notice that is through the trash room. See, the trash room is locked behind a gate, in which the only way to get in there is to be the person on cleaning duty, as there's only one set of keys and the person on cleaning duty is the person who has the keys. Now we learn very quickly that Hifumi is the one with the keys. But when Hifumi eventually unlocks the trash room, or unlocks the gate behind the trash room, we get closer to the incinerator and we notice something. The incinerator has a burnt shirt piece with some blood on it sitting right in front of it on the floor, as well as some broken glass, which can be assumed to be some sort of like broken ball, glass ball. But that leaves one question: how? And see, the thing is that Hifumi ends up recalling that from last night, he remembers the incinerator being off. However, when we go to see it, he noticed that the incinerator had just recently been on. So the question that now poses is, how was the murderer able to get rid of the shirt as well as turn the incinerator on if the incinerator is locked behind a gate and Hifumi is the only person access to the trash room due to him having the only one with the only set of keys for it? And this is where it starts to get interesting, because now it's like, well, the obvious answer in that scenario would be Hifumi, right? But once again, let's just keep on investigating, have an open mind, because the moment you stop having an open mind, like again, it could lead to everyone's demise. This is the first case, and like I say again, if we get it wrong, everyone is dead. And see, with all the evidence gathered, Monokuma makes an announcement.
I'm getting tired of waiting. What say we just get started, It's time for the long-awaited class trial! Now then, allow me to appoint a proper location for the proceedings. Please go through the red door on the first floor of the school. See you soon!
It's finally time. The first class trial is finally on the way. This is finally happening. This is actually going to happen. The class trial is finally happening. This very real experience that we wish weren't real is really happening. So, everyone meets up, we all enter the elevator, and we make our way down to the courtroom. It's time we finally solve the mystery behind who murdered the ultimate pop sensation, Sayaka Maizono. And now, here, the game introduces you to, or teaches you a lot about how class trials essentially works, because it's your first one. So we're not going to be talking about too much about what the game teaches you, but I will definitely talk about enough where hopefully you will understand, because there's a lot that they teach you, hence it being your first class trial. But I will once again tell you enough that you are still kept in the loop and actually have an idea of what exactly is going on. Because our main objective here is, in regarding to the case, Mikoto needs to firstly clear his name, show evidence as to why it couldn't have been him, and then show evidence as to who the real culprit could have been. So he has his work set out for him, and I'm sure Mikoto can do it. So with everything in place, let us start the very first class trial. Okay? Let it begin. Okay, so the trial starts, and here's the thing. I'm gonna try and guide you and sort of keep you up to date with what's going on as the trial goes along, just so that you can essentially stay in the loop. Now, if you fail to spot or refute the contradiction, all that will happen is that the game will repeat the argument. Now, what I mean by repeating the argument is, if you notice in the top right corner, every single time a character is speaking, they're using up one of the bars in the top right corner. Now, if you fail to spot it or refute the contradiction, all it means is that the game will just loop it again, that same argument, until you get it right. However, do keep wary that there is also a timer. So if it takes you too long to refute and spot the contradiction, then you'll automatically fail the trial. Now, to start off the first argument, Chihiro mentioned that Sayaka was surprised, or she had a sneak attack, in which Sayaka had no idea of when she was being attacked. But notice how the text is in yellow. These are our contradiction or lies, mainly because of the fact that they can be either one of the two. Now, if you see near the bottom, we have a truth bullet being the evidence of a struggle. How the trial generally works, or how most of the trial will work anyway when you play the game, is that you're supposed to use the truth bullets in order to refute the contradictions or the lies. Now, here's the thing, obviously this is the first one and it's the start of the case, so the game is going kind of easy. But further on down the game that you go, and depending on the difficulty that you play on, you essentially will end up obtaining more truth bullets, in which you'll have to start using the correct one to shoot the right truth bullet in order to contradict the correct lie or contradiction. However, you must be careful, because if you end up using the wrong truth bullet on certain contradictions, then you lose one of your hearts. And if you end up losing all your hearts, you guessed it, you fail the trial. So, like I say again, you need to make sure that not only, and later on down the game, you'll also end up having more contradictions, in which only certain truth bullets contradict or refute certain contradictions within the arguments. So you also need to make sure that you're using the correct truth bullet against the correct refute of a contradiction. So after we use our truth bullet on Chihiro's statement, that is when we get our first counter. Okay? And that's when Makoto gives his evidence or his reasoning as to why there very clearly is no way that Sayaka was sneak attacked.
Just a second, Chihiro. Try to remember how my room looked. With the way things had been damaged, I think we can definitely assume there was a struggle.
A struggle? Between who and who?
Between Sayaka and the killer, of course.
So you're saying Sayaka wasn't caught by surprise in the bathroom?
In mentioning that there's clear signs that it was evidence of a struggle, okay? If you just look at the room, you can tell that a fight went down. And obviously the fight obviously went down between Sayaka and the killer. And at this point, you even have some of the other characters start to give their own input.
She must have been attacked in the main room first. Then, she ran to the bathroom to try and hide. The killer followed her in, and that's where they finished the job.
That much should have been obvious after taking one look at the scene. It shouldn't even need explaining.
Wow, this is starting to sound like a real trial.
And fair play, Hifumi, this is starting to feel like a real trial. And see, onto the next argument, we are now going on about the murder weapon. And this time, our truth bullet ends up being the kitchen knife set.
So the killer used some random knife they had on him.
And see, Mondo ends up stating that the killer must have used some random weapon that they had on them. But that is when we use our truth bullet in order to counter this contradiction, giving us our second.
No, that's wrong.
And see, that's when Makoto mentions that there simply just can't be any old random knife, because, well, we noticed that in the kitchen knife set in the kitchen, one of the knives are missing, so it clearly has to be one of the knives from the kitchen that was used.
No, I do think it was a knife, but not just any knife. I'm almost positive it was a kitchen knife.
Huh? A kitchen knife?
After the murder, we discovered that one of the knives from the kitchen was missing.
Which means that knife must be the murder weapon.
Oh, yeah. I guess that makes sense. You could sort of see the weapon sticking out of her stomach. And if you look real close, I could totally see that being a kitchen knife.
And as we progress,
Okay, so the murder weapon was a kitchen knife, but where does that get us? I mean, we all know Makoto killed her, right?
That's right. Makoto's room was the scene of the crime. What more proof do you need?
whoa. Leon just jumps the gun, saying that this entire thing is a waste of time because of the fact that we all just know that Makoto did it, with Toko backing her up. But that's when Kyoko mentions,
Let's draw our conclusions after we've presented our arguments. Otherwise, what's the point of the trial?
Well, we can talk all we want. It's not going to change that conclusion.
I don't think that's true at all. I'm sure if we keep at it, something new will reveal itself.
and she's absolutely right. It is absolutely essential that we just allow this trial to play out, because most likely newer things are going to end up revealing themselves in this case anyway. Plus, even if we automatically just assume that it was Makoto, if we got it wrong, everyone was going to die apart from the person who actually got away with the murder. So yeah, maybe it's a smart idea that we don't just instantly assume that Makoto did it, because it could prove fatal for everyone. So for our next truth bullet, we have Aoi or Hina's account. And see, the next point is, well, at what point did the murderer actually go and get the murder weapon? And see, Toko blames us, saying that we must have grabbed it in the dining hall, or we must have gone through the dining hall and into the kitchen and got it when no one was looking.
Makoto must have taken it from the kitchen, right? He did it in secret. Nobody was in the...
Yet again, another contradiction, and that's when we use our truth bullet to give us yet again another
no, that's wrong.
And see, that's when Makoto asks Hina to remember what she literally mentioned to him earlier in that day.
Okay, wait, hold on. I didn't take the knife from the kitchen.
Next, you're gonna say you're not the killer, right? Go ahead and say it all you want.
Well, what if I have a witness? What do you think, Hina?
Huh?
Remember what you were telling me earlier? Just to be perfectly clear, the knife disappeared while you were in the dining hall, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And at any point while you were there, did you ever see me come into the dining hall?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, he definitely wasn't there.
The knife disappeared while Hina was in the dining hall, but I wasn't there the entire time. In other words, there's no way I could have taken the knife.
In which Hina mentions that late at night, she went to go make some tea. And that when she went to go clean her glass after having some tea, she mentioned that she noticed that one of the knives had gone. And coincidentally, at no point when she was in the dining hall did she ever actually see Makoto go into the dining hall. So Makoto can't have been the murderer to collect the murder weapon, or else Hina would have undoubtedly seen him do it. And see, that's when Toko goes to claim that both Makoto and Hina are in it together.
Okay, then what about this? What if the idiot swimmer girl and Makoto are in on it together, and lying to protect each other?
Which, to be fair, is an interesting point. So, it raises an interesting question, in which Byakuya ends up asking Monokuma,
Speaking of which, I'd like to ask the bear, if there is an accomplice, do they also become blackened?
well, if someone was to have an accomplice, would the accomplice also become blackened? In which Monokuma mentioned,
Each murder is allowed to have an accomplice, but only the one who does the killing will get to graduate.
that each murder is allowed to have one accomplice, but the one who actually does the killing is the one that becomes blackened and is allowed to graduate. So as Kyoko ends up putting it,
So in other words, two people can work together, but one of them has no chance of profiting from it.
even though two people can work together on doing it, only one of the people will actually be profiting from it, being the killer themselves. But then Chihiro also mentions,
But what if they did work together and they just didn't know about the rule?
but what if they had no idea about the rule, in which maybe they did have an accomplice, but they just had no idea that that was how the rule worked? In which Monokuma quickly just shuts down the entire argument, saying,
Good grief! Enough already! No, okay? There are no accomplices in this case!
there is no accomplice in this case. So after that whole thing is moved on, so we know that at least this point that there is no accomplice, Celeste ends up bringing an interesting point in which
Hina seems the obvious candidate. After all, she just said she was in the dining hall.
well, if Hina knows that Makoto didn't steal the knife, then Hina is the most likely candidate for being the one who stole the murder weapon, or got the murder weapon.
That's right. Sakura was with me the entire time I was drinking my tea.
I hate to have to ask, but just to be sure, Sakura's...
Me.
However, Sakura quickly shuts this down, as Sakura ends up mentioning that she was in the dining hall with Hina the entire time. And see, that's when Hina ends up mentioning that one other person did actually come into the dining hall that night.
Oh, yeah, that's true. One other person did come to the dining hall while we were there.
Why didn't you say so in the first place?
Well, because they're not here anymore. Sayaka. She's the one who came to the dining hall. And then later, she wound up dead.
It was none other than Sayaka herself. Sayaka was the only person that Hina and Sakura saw coming to the dining hall. And this is when the game gives us our first opportunity in order to pick the correct option, in which we have to pick who we think went and stole the murder weapon. And obviously, if you get it wrong, then you end up losing one of your hearts, lose all your hearts, and you know the whole thing by now. And see, this is when the case is actually starting to get good, because Mikoto's just come to the realization that Sayaka is the one that stole the murder weapon.
I got it! Then, Sayaka is the one who took the knife?
That's the only possibility.
And at this point, Makoto thinks, oh, I'm in the clear now. But that's when people actually raise up the interesting point. Well, just because Makoto didn't get the murder weapon doesn't mean he didn't use it.
In that case, you may not have taken the knife, but you still could have killed her.
But that's when Kyoko mentioned something that was most bewildering.
Hold on. It's still too early to decide conclusively that Makoto is the killer, wouldn't you say? Because you see, if the room did belong to the killer, then they did something most bewildering.
And this is when the game introduces you to our first ever Hangman's Gambit. Now, Hangman's Gambit is a classic twist on the game Hangman, in which you have to shoot down the letters in order to reveal a certain phrase or word to answer the incident in question. When doing so, for the first one, it's the word hair. And from there, Makoto mentions,
That's right! There wasn't a single hair on the floor!
So, the culprit removed some evidence?
Yes, and if I were the culprit, why would I need to get rid of all the hair in my own room? It wouldn't be unusual at all to find my hair at the crime scene if the crime scene is in my room.
and that's when Kyoko closes it off by saying,
Okay, then why wasn't there any hair on the ground?
The killer got rid of it all, of course, to remove any trace that they had ever been there.
Wait, then that means...
Precisely. It's simply beyond reason to believe that the room's owner and the killer are one and the same.
Then, Makoto isn't the culprit?
However, not everyone is completely convinced that a simple absence of Makoto's hair exactly clears him as being the possible murderer.
Are you sure we can decide something so important based solely on the absence of some hair?
Now, Kyoko mentions that she has more reasons as to why it couldn't be us, and she ends up stating,
Sayaka was attacked in the main room first, then fled into the bathroom, right?
Yeah, then they ran after her, got into the bathroom, and stabbed her.
And how did the killer get into the bathroom? Did they have any trouble with it?
What do you mean?
It's fairly certain that the killer had some trouble getting into the bathroom. There was clear evidence left behind. Do you remember, Makoto?
and this is the first time where the game allows us to pick a specific piece of evidence that answers the question that we've just been asked, in which in this scenario, it being the doorknob screws being loose.
I got it! Evidence that the killer had trouble getting into the bathroom. You're talking about the doorknob, right?
Huh? The doorknob? What doorknob?
The doorknob for my bathroom. It was completely broken. See how the top part was unscrewed? And the doorknob's about ready to fall off?
And see, it's at this point that the game decides to make it more difficult. Remember how I mentioned earlier that later on down the line, they would not only increase the amount of weak points, but they'd increase the amount of truth bullets, but now they've increased the amount of weak points. And we have to use the truth bullet on the correct one. And as you can see in this argument, you'll notice that there are more than one weak point.
Sayaka was first attacked in the main room. She then fled into the bathroom.
Then the killer ran after her. And they got into the bathroom.
At that point, the killer had to try and bust down the door, because Sayaka had locked it.
However, it's easy to know what the correct one is because when Leon mentions,
because Sayaka had locked it,
we know that that simply isn't true. And we end up using our truth bullet, giving us yet again another
No, it's wrong.
Yeah, he mentions that his door was simply stuck.
The reason my bathroom didn't open wasn't because it was locked. After all, the girls' rooms are the only ones with walking bathrooms, right?
Yes, now that you mention it, that is true.
Then why didn't your bathroom door open?
Because it was stuck.
And he also mentions,
My bathroom door doesn't fit in the frame quite right. Monokuma over there can testify to that.
Yup, true as true can be.
and this is when Makoto mentions that the murderer actually had no idea as to where they were, as the murderer thought that they were in Sayaka's room, as like Makoto mentioned earlier, only the girls' bathrooms have locks, when in actuality, the murderer was in Makoto's room. So they ended up unnecessarily trying to unlock the bathroom door when it simply wasn't needed to do that because of the fact that it wasn't actually in one of the girls' rooms, but Makoto's room.
I got it! The killer must not have realized that it was my room.
What? Are you saying the culprit didn't even know where he was? That's inconceivable.
and yet, he's absolutely right.
Say what?
And this is when Makoto mentions that
Definitely something I wouldn't do, since I would have known exactly why it wasn't opening, right?
That is a definite possibility.
So the killer would have to be someone who didn't know they'd switched rooms?
Then Makoto couldn't have done it.
And at this point, I think we're pretty clear to say that Makoto has finally cleared his name, And it being all too much for Hifumi says probably one of the realest yet one of the saddest things ever.
I'm sorry, but I give up. Quit without saving.
Now, up until this point, I have gone over every single argument. Like, we haven't skipped anything thus far. And I've done that on purpose to keep you in the loop and just so that you know exactly what's happening, which is completely fine. But we're gonna have to skip ahead a bit. And it's not that I don't want to go over every single detail, but not already, this is my longest video by a mile. That part, no denying it. And the video that I was watching as I wrote the script, at this point, I was only 30 minutes into the video. And that video was 1 hour and 40 minutes long. And that video was helping me write the script. So yeah, it's probably a good idea that I don't go over every minute detail, or else we're basically going to be here forever. Okay, I already expect this video to be around 1 hour. We don't need to be pushing 2 hours. Okay, 2 hours is like, let's have some composure. Plus, I can already imagine the amount of editing I can, like, just thinking about the amount of editing I'm gonna have to do is probably gonna take an entire day. And honestly, just saying that out loud hurts my brain. So now we're gonna skip ahead a little bit. And now at this point in the case, we still need to figure out, firstly, who did it and how exactly everything went down. So firstly, now I need to speak quieter because of how late it is. But regardless, we're gonna keep on going. See, at this point, we need to figure out how the murderer actually got into the room. That's the big mystery, because as Monokuma mentioned previously, you can't lockpick the dorm rooms open. Every person's dorm room can't be lockpicked. So how did they get in? And the thing is, Makoto mentions and he gives evidence showing that not only did they switch room keys, but he told Sayaka to promise him not to switch rooms. Or not to open the door for anyone, which makes sense because the only reason the room switch was happening in the first place is because Sayaka said that she was scared.
I got it! Because Sayaka was already scared, remember? That's why she asked me to switch rooms in the first place. Knowing what she'd been through, I just can't believe she would have opened the door for anyone.
But then that poses one question. What if Sayaka was lying? What if by Sayaka saying that she was scared, she did that knowing that Makoto would switch rooms with her?
What if her being scared was a lie?
And see, that's when Kyoko shows a note that was written to the killer, in which Sayaka mentions to the killer that she wants to meet with them to speak with them. And she also mentions checking the nameplates before actually knocking on the door to make sure that they are absolutely certain they're going in the right room.
I know you don't want to consider it, but look at this and tell me. Can you still deny the possibility?
And the notebook used to write this note was found in Makoto's room, meaning that the only two possibilities of people it could have been is either Makoto or Sayaka, as they were the only two people in the room prior to the incident happening. And well, we obviously know that Makoto didn't write it, so it had to be Sayaka. And this is when the case gets more interesting than it ever has been. I mean, think about the things that we've learned thus far. Sayaka was actually the one who stole the murder weapon. And now we learn that Sayaka lied to us about switching rooms in order to make the person she was inviting over, well, she lied about switching rooms with Makoto and then actually ends up inviting the killer into her own room. What the heck is going on? And if we mention the fact that the person who obviously ended up being the killer did end up listening to the note, it means that at some point, Sayaka actually ended up switching the nameplates without Makoto knowing.
I got it! Me and Sayaka were the only ones who ever knew about us switching rooms. So the only other person besides me who would even know to switch the nameplates was Sayaka.
Meaning that had the killer listened to what the note said, they walked into Makoto's room thinking it was Sayaka's room because they switched the nameplates. I mean, honestly, this is crazy. It's only getting better from here. And now we need to understand the events that took place within the room. What actually happened? How did the fight break out? Who started the attack? And obviously the biggest question of them all, who actually did it? See, we know that at some point the gold sword was used, and it was even unsheathed. See, we know that because the gold sword had golden residue on it, and Makoto mentions that the gold residue, even with the slightest touch, will stick onto you. There's no way to prevent it from happening. And we know that the sword was used against Sayaka, as when you look at Sayaka's right swollen wrist, you notice that there's some golden residue on it. So the killer 1000% used it to attack Sayaka at some point during the fight.
I got it! All you have to do is take a good look at her broken wrist, and it should become pretty clear. Right there where her wrist is all swollen, there's something glittery there. See?
Is that gold?
It sure is. Specifically, the gold coating from the replica sword. You barely have to touch that stuff, and it'll stick right to you. And there's some on her wrist because...
I got it! Because she got hit with the sword, right there on her wrist!
However, it's at this point where the game now introduces more truth bullets. You know how I mentioned that we were going to eventually end up doing this? Well, first they introduced more weak points, but now they also introduce more truth bullets. Either way, it's nothing to worry about, and let's just keep on going. And that's when we end up getting another
sword-based sneak attack.
No, it's wrong.
as we end up learning the true events of what actually took place. Within the room, anyway.
She launched her attack with the knife, then found herself under attack in turn. That must be when her wrist got broken, and she was forced to drop the knife.
The tables were suddenly turned on her, and she died at the hands of the one she'd planned to murder.
And see, this is when all the events start to click together. See, what happened within Makoto's room is that Sayaka actually invited the murderer out, or the killer out, to her room, in which she tried to sneak attack them. She failed. The murderer ended up grabbing the sword while sheathed and defend themselves, hence why the sword sheath has scratches on it. Eventually, they end up unsheathing the sword and hitting Sayaka with it, more specifically on her wrist, breaking her wrist and allowing her to lose grip of the sword. Well, not the sword, the knife. Sayaka, feeling like, nothing to defend herself with now, decides to run into the bathroom and closes the door behind her. At this point, the killer decides to use whatever tools they can, a screwdriver, in order to undo the screw and unlock the door to the bathroom, thinking that it was locked. At that point, they pick the knife back up and deal the killing blow that eventually would go on to kill Sayaka. As that's the events of what happened in the room. But don't worry, there is still more things to go over. Meaning, when we really think about it all, Sayaka was actually the one who planned of murdering someone. It was Sayaka's idea. Sayaka had planned to murder someone, not the other way around. The killer in this situation was the victim. The only problem is, it backfired. Sayaka, it all ended up blowing up in her face. And it makes even more sense because when we look at it, it was actually Sayaka who suggested that her and Makoto switch rooms. Like I say again, Sayaka mentioned that she was scared. You know, coincidentally, for someone who is the ultimate lucky student, legit, nothing has gone lucky for this guy at all. Well, all of the luck has been bad luck so far. But even with us knowing the events now, even though we know the timeline of what took place within the room, it still leaves one question. Obviously, who did it? Who committed the murder? And just as Leon mentions,
but there just aren't any more clues, right?
The truth bullet, being the dying message, gives us yet again another.
But there just aren't any more clues, right?
No, that's wrong.
And that's when Makoto starts talking about Sayaka's dying message.
There still might be one clue left. Sayaka's dying message.
Dining? Wait, what did you say?
And that eventually leads into Kyoko talking about the message itself, mentioning
the dying message. She wrote something on the wall behind her, remember? 11037, written in her own blood. There must be a clue about the killer hidden in there.
Because if we rotate the image of the dying message 180 degrees, the name of the killer becomes clear as day.
Rotate the image 180 degrees.
Oh my god. Now I see. She wrote down the killer's name. Here's my answer.
And that is when the game has us decide who we finally think it is. None other than Leon Kuwata. Oh, and here's the photo flipped, by the way.
The key to solving this mystery was simply to rotate the writing 180 degrees. If you turn the message around, it becomes the letters L-E-O-N. L-E-O-N. Or more accurately, Leon.
But even with this, there is still some cracks, I guess you could make. Like, you could just say that Sayaka wrote a random person's name down, really and truly, to try and drag someone down with her. Like, this is pretty much undeniable evidence, but we need to make sure that there are no holes or cracks or whatsoever to poke holes in. But there's also one other piece of evidence we can look at, the burnt shirt piece. See, it's kind of hard because not only was part of the shirt already burnt, many people within the courtroom or within the class trial also are wearing white shirts, so there's no way to pin it on the person. However, that's when we need to look at how exactly was the shirt burned. And as you notice, the glass ball. The glass ball was used to turn the incinerator on. Now, the only other way that you could turn the incinerator on is to unlock the gate, having the key, and physically going to turn it on, something that only Hifumi could do. However, with the glass ball, we can know that it surely couldn't have been Hifumi, because if it were Hifumi, Hifumi would have been a lot more careful with it. And plus, like say again, the glass ball. We know that they threw the glass ball in order to turn it on.
Hifumi had the key, so the only way the incinerator could have been turned on without his knowledge was because the killer was able to hit the switch without opening the gate. Once they got the incinerator going, all they had to do was ball up the shirt and toss it in.
Meaning that whoever did it would need incredible amount of skill in order to throw the glass ball through the gap in the gate for the trash room, turn the incinerator on, and then throw their own shirt into the incinerator. And like I say again, that sounds like it takes an incredible amount of skill. Until you look at our options of who it could be.
because the killer is the ultimate baseball star. Isn't that right, Leon?
Do you have any idea how stupid you sound right now?
A target 30 feet away would surely be little challenge for the ultimate baseball star.
You can't be serious. I'm not the killer!
And the only person who would even have a remotely good enough chance of being able to hit something like that is none other than the ultimate baseball star. And at this point, this is where the game more or less introduces the closing argument. The closing argument is when you review the entire case, sort of in a comic book style sort of thing, in which you have to review over how everything happened. Because at this point, we know everything. Not only do we know how it happened, but then we know the steps that the killer took after the murder in order to get rid of things. So here's the full story.
The killer is you! I think I'd better take one more look back at the case from the beginning. Last night, the killer went to the room Sayaka was in. In other words, my room. From what we can tell, Sayaka invited that person there intending to kill them. She attacked them with the knife she'd taken from the kitchen earlier. But then something happened that she wasn't prepared for. They grabbed the fake sword I put in my room and fought back. During the struggle, a strike from the sword broke Sayaka's right wrist. And that's when she lost her grip on the kitchen knife. Finding herself cornered, Sayaka panicked and ran into the bathroom. The killer went after her, but couldn't get the bathroom door open. What they didn't know was that my bathroom door got stuck easily, and there was a trick to opening it. Sayaka knew about that because I'd told her, but of course the killer had no way of knowing. So instead, the killer forced the door open, took the kitchen knife, and stabbed Sayaka. But with what strength she had remaining, Sayaka left a dying message. To keep the killer from noticing, she wrote it on the wall behind her. And with that, all her strength was gone. With Sayaka dead, the killer quickly began destroying the evidence. First, they took off their shirt, which was covered in their victim's blood. Then they took the lint roller in my room and cleaned up the entire area. They wanted to make sure they got rid of any trace they'd ever been there. Afterwards, the killer headed to the trash room to destroy their bloody shirt. They tried to burn the shirt using the incinerator there. But the trash room was blocked off by an especially sturdy gate, preventing access to the incinerator. So they came up with a plan to use Hero's crystal ball, which he'd left in the laundry room. The killer managed to throw the ball through the gap in the gate and hit the incinerator switch. For any normal person, that'd be an impossible throw, but the killer had the confidence to take a shot. And that's because the killer was the ultimate baseball star. crystal ball, thrown with absolute precision, hit the switch on the incinerator, which then quickly roared to life. Having destroyed the final piece of evidence, they left the area with, I imagine, a sigh of relief. But there was one thing they missed. Part of the shirt they'd thrown into the fire burnt away and fell out of the incinerator. The killer didn't notice this, and so left behind a piece of indisputable evidence. Isn't that right, Leon?
And see, at this point, we're basically at the finale, okay? Because the game decides to introduce one final new game mode, being the bullet time battle, in which the bullet time battle is basically sort of like a rhythm game, in which you have to press one button to attack the statements and then another button to destroy the statement. However, you have to do that in beat with the game. And when you gain a combo, you get a tempo up, making the game quicker. Whereas if you start to fail, you get a tempo down, slowing the game down. Now the whole point is that you need to get rid of the person that you're talking to, influence gauge, get rid of all of it, and then hit them with the final strike, in which you will use your final truth bullet or one last truth bullet to put their claims to rest. Essentially calling it an end for the entire case. However, lose your hearts before and you lose, and you'll have to restart from the very beginning. Well, not the beginning of the entire class trial, but from the beginning of the bullet time battle. And once again, it works sort of like a rhythm game, so it's not that hard to pick up on, but definitely does get more difficult further down the line. Anyway, after beating the bullet time battle, our final truth bullet is the toolkit.
Where's your proof?
This should prove it.
And see, that's because the murderer, not knowing that they were in Makoto's room, brought in or went to go get their own toolkit. So, when Makoto ends up asking Leon,
Leon, would you mind showing us your toolkit? If I'm right about this, then the screwdriver will show some evidence of being used.
that's when Leon finally folds, leading to the game grading you on your performance, and when the votes are casted, Leon as being guilty. And Monokuma reveals that we are correct. Leon starts crashing out, rightfully so, not wanting to die. But then Monokuma says that. And then Monokuma hits his hit catchphrase, his iconic line.
Let's give it everything we've got! It's punishment time! No!
And this is where we get the animation for the punishment. And let me tell you now, it's gonna get a bit brutal, okay? So don't tell me I didn't warn you. And see, everyone is left shocked as they cannot believe what they've literally just witnessed. It's really starting to set in and kick in just how real this very dire situation that they're in is. And the returning player count drops down to 12. Just after the first case, we've lost 3 students already. And let me just say this, for the first case, this was cinema. This was genuinely incredible, okay? The game had me so stuck in from how well this class trial, the intro, how this all was executed, okay? From wanting to learn about how the events took place to even the curveballs, no pun intended, this game had me so stuck in. Because like, what do you mean we end up figuring out that Sayaka meant to try and murder someone first and that it just backfired on her? Either way, the future cases in this game do not drop in intensity. And that's the great thing about it. Like, the game, this first case was so incredible. And even after playing the further cases further on down the line, let me tell you now, the intensity, the heat, the excitement, the joy of figuring out, and the brutality of the executions, it's just incredible. And genuinely, once again, I would advise anyone to play a game like Danganronpa. Now, I know I've been rambling on for quite the moment, okay? I've been speaking for quite a while. Like, again, this is my longest video. But there are just some things I wanted to talk about very quickly before we bring this whole to an end. Firstly, Danganronpa came out in 2016. So the fact that me today in this day and age can play a game that almost came out 10 years ago, well, almost 10 years ago, and have as much enjoyment as I did is honestly incredible. Because most games nowadays look like this. And yet this old 2016 point and click, a mechanic that isn't really used that much in video games nowadays, like it's quite a unique one and quite a rare one to find, is incredible. Heck, the art style, the school itself, everything about this game, for how old it is beautiful and quite an experience. I genuinely loved it every step of the way. Also, the music. If you know me, then you know how much I love music, which means that music within games really have a expectation from me when it comes to playing them. Because music is important, especially in video games, whether you notice it or not. And let me tell you now, the music in this game was beautifully orchestrated. Whether we're talking from the chill moments like the free time to the intense moments, or even during the class trial in the arguments, closing argument, hangman's gambit, and bullet time battle, all the music here is incredibly made, as well as all of them being iconic enough that I could probably play the music to a Danganronpa fan and they'd be able to know which one is which. If I was to play them the closing argument music, they'd probably know. If I was to play them the bullet time battle music, they'll probably know. Because not only is it so well perfected and the music being so good for it, but it's how iconic the music has become. You know when you hear this music in Danganronpa, this is happening. You know when you hear this music in Danganronpa, this is happening. That's the point I'm trying to get across. And last but not least, how could I not talk about the execution? The execution in this game, as you can tell from the first one, are all unique to the people who committed the crimes, to the characters and what ultimate they are. When I tell you that watching Leon's execution for the first time not only sent me deathly silent, but was so good at bringing in this sense of fear that I had to watch it like 2 or 3 times. Heck, I even watched the anime version of it. Was incredible. Because just the pure creativity of how good it was, as well as how brutal it was. You see, After the class trial, I was sort of happy that we caught Leon, because it was like we finally brought justice to Sayaka's death and we all get to live another day. But it was watching his execution where it left a bit of an upset feeling in my stomach, because the question now became, well, is this justified? Is this retaliation? Leon, is this okay? Because I think due to the sheer brutality of Leon's death, I no longer felt so good about the fact that we had caught him. Like, yeah, we get to live for another day, but this guy's death was brutal. He literally got pelted with baseballs up until his death. It's like brutal in such a sick and twisted way. I didn't know how to feel. But that's what makes the execution so incredible. And I actually mean it for the last time, but, well, yeah, I actually mean it this time. But last but not least, how can I not talk about Monokuma? Like I mentioned earlier, Monokuma is supposed to represent despair. As I quote him again verbatim, taking that taking that hope and seeing it get murdered creates a darkened sense of despair. He really meant that. And I think Monokuma has done an incredible job at sticking to it. Monokuma cares about nothing apart from fulfilling this idea of despair, okay? Through and through again, it's almost like, I mean, not even almost like it is quite literally his lifestyle. It's his ideals, it's his image. He is despair. And despair, though it follows by certain rules and this and that, it's cutthroat. Despair can only be brought about as long as there isn't hope. And the entire time in playing this game, that's all Monokuma ever tries to do. He tries to get rid of hope in order to bring about despair. And I love the fact that he continuously, as much as I hate Monokuma and I hate hearing that brother laugh, he genuinely does such a good job at sticking to this like morale of his, or morals of his, of making sure that despair stays despair. Either way, this is where I'm finally gonna wrap this up. I think this took me like 3, almost 4 hours to record everything, including all the stops and me having to read the script and everything. But like this one, like I've already said like 4 or 5 times now, was definitely a long one, and definitely the one that I've had to put the most work into of all that I've done so far, and maybe even for the ones I can think of in my head as of right now that I'm gonna have to end up doing, probably will even take longer than those ones. Like again, this is not gonna be like a regular occurrence thing. But one final time, I do just want to say thank you, because like I say again, it's sort of like a, not only is this like sort of fun doing, but like it's sort of like building your craft, in which you only get better at something by doing it more. So the next one obviously will be dropping next month. But like I say again, if there is ever a chance that it doesn't, do know that I am busy, and it's not just me being lazy, it's just simply the fact that I am busy. But I will try everything in my power to make sure that at the very least, if it doesn't, then it's not because of the fact that I was being lazy, but it's just that I didn't have the time. Okay? I want laziness to be like the last reason as to why I couldn't do it. And I don't even want hard work to be on the list, okay? Either way, that is the beauty of Danganronpa 1. This has been your boy Genie, and I will see you all next month.